In this video, we will create a very basic user interface using some common QML types. We will learn how to define these types in a Qt quick application. Here, we will start with an application that has been already created. This is a basic Qt quick application with the default setup. We will define our front-end implementation in the main.qml file. When we create an application using Qt Creator's new project wizard, Qt automatically includes the necessary dependencies for our Qt quick application. Therefore, we can see in the main.qml file that we have the Qt quick module already imported. Qt quick is a commonly used module that allows users access to basic QML types such as window. Window has properties which can be adjusted according to the need. For this example, the default window definition is good enough for us to proceed. If you want to learn more about this type and the available properties for it, there is an easy way to look for the information. All we need to do is to highlight the type's name and press F1. It will open the official documentation specifying the requested type's information inside Qt Creator. Another way of opening the documentation would be to highlight the type's name, right-click on the mouse, and select the Context Help option from the bottom of the pop-up menu. Let's close the documentation for now. Let's run the program. We can see that an empty window opens with a title at the top. We will add a couple of rectangles inside the window. Let's close it and jump back to the editor. We will place all our components inside the window type, in addition to align the components vertically in a column. Let's define a column first. The column will be in the center of the window and have some spacing around it. Now inside the column, we define our first rectangle. The rectangle will be of width 100 and height 100. On this first rectangle, we will apply a gradient. The colors of the gradient are specified as a set of gradient stop child items, where each defines a position on the gradient from 0.0 to 1.0 and a color. The position of each gradient stop and color are defined by the position and the color properties. Now if we build and run the application, we can see a rectangle is placed in the center of the window and has a gradient color of pink and red. It is good to note that when an item has both a gradient and a color defined, Qt will always demonstrate its defined gradient. To show an example, let's go back to the editor and add a color property to this rectangle. We will set it to the color blue. Now, let's run the program. Here we can see that despite defining the color property, the rectangle is showing the gradient color. Let's close the window for now and go back to the editor. It is also possible to create different shapes with a rectangle. Next, we will create a circle using the rectangle type. Similarly to the previous rectangle, we define another rectangle with width 100 and height 100. The rectangle will be light blue and have a black border around it. It is possible to set a radius to a rectangle. The radius property can be set and adjusted to round off the corners of a rectangle, as well as create a circle. Let's shape the following rectangle as a circle. To do this, we can bind the radius property to the rectangle's height. Let's build, save, and run the application. We can see, below the first rectangle, there is a light blue colored circle which has a black border around it. We will continue our implementation in the same application where we defined window and rectangle. Let's go inside the column, and below the second rectangle we will define our next QML type, an item. Item is a non-visual type that is inherited by most other QML types. Here we define an item with a width of 100 and a height of 50. Inside the item we want to define a text of color blue. To define text, we will be using the text component. It is useful to demonstrate standalone text and customize it as needed. We want the text to be extended to the width of its parent, which is in this case the item. We will bind the text width to its parent's width. We also want the text to be of the Courier New font family and have a pixel size of 22. Now let's set the value of the text. It is a good practice to mark text or string values with the QSTR function in case we want to translate it in future. We will not dig into the Qt translation in this video. There is a separate course specifically dedicated to that topic and has been explained in detail. For our text object, we will also add a wrap mode property to wrap our text in case it gets too long to fit within the given area. With that, let's save, build, and run the program. We can see in our application window there is now a third object visible that we just defined. Here, the item is not visible as it is a non-visual type. Lastly, we will see an example of an image type. Let's close the window and jump back to the editor. Below the text object, let's define an image. We want the image to have a width of 100 and a height of 100. Now to show the image, we first need to add it to our project. There are a few different ways of adding an external file to a Qt Quick application. In this video, we will apply one of them. To add an image to our project, we need the image file in our project folder. Let's open the project folder in the File Explorer. Here, we can see we already have an image which we moved here earlier. Now let's jump back to the editor. To add an image file to our project, we will navigate to our cmakelist.txt file. In the Qt add QML module command, we will add a section for resources and add the image file name qtlogo.png. The image is now part of our project. Now, let's jump back to the main.qml file and add the name of the image as the source of the image type. Let's save, build, and run the code. We can see at the bottom of our application window, the image is visible. Besides the QML types mentioned in these videos, there are many more we can use in our Qt Quick applications. To learn more about the Qt Quick QML types, please refer to the official QML documentation. Thank you for watching.